can you tell me about your hometown? My hometown is Ipoh, Malaysia. I would say it's a peaceful city compared to KL because many young people have moved to bigger cities in search of better career opportunities. As a result, Ipoh has a slower pace of life, which is one of the things that I really like about it. If I visited your hometown for one day, what would you recommend I do? There are plenty of places to visit in Ipoh, but if I had to choose just one thing, I would definitely take my friends to try some local delicacies. Nowadays, it's easy to find famous restaurants online, but as a local, I know a few hidden gems that most tourists don't know about. They serve traditional dishes like lamb mee, wanti mee, and so on. I think trying authentic local food is one of the best ways to experience my hometown. What do you like most about living in Ipoh? One of the things I really like about my hometown is the little traffic. I don't have to worry about traffic jams because I can go anywhere at any time. However, if you are living in KL, I wouldn't recommend going out during peak hour, especially after work, because traffic can come to a complete standstill. Has your hometown changed much since you were a child? I think my hometown has changed quite a lot over the years. If I had to choose just one change, I would definitely say there are more supermarkets now. In the past, there used to be plenty of empty shop lots, but nowadays, you can find supermarkets almost everywhere. For example, there are lots of 99 Speed Mart stores and Mr. DIY outlets. It's much more convenient than when I was a child because back then, we had to travel quite far just to buy daily necessities.
Do you think your hometown is a good place for young people? I would say both yes and no. It depends on what you're looking for. On the one hand, Ipoh has a slower pace of life and a more peaceful environment because there are fewer people than in KL. On the other hand, many young people move to KL in search of better career opportunities because salaries are generally higher there. Would you like to continue living in your hometown in the future? If possible, I would like to move back to my hometown in the future because my whole family lives there. In order to achieve this goal, I try to study English every day, although I sometimes miss a day because I am too tired after work. Spending time with my family every day makes me feel recharged. However, living alone in KL can sometimes make me feel lonely, especially after a long day at work. That's one of the main reasons why I would like to move back to Ipoh someday. Why do many young people leave their hometowns to work in bigger cities? In my hometown, many young people have moved to bigger cities in search of better career opportunities. I think the main reason is that bigger cities usually offer higher salaries. In addition, they provide more opportunities for career growth and professional development. For examples, many of my friends moved to KL after graduating because they wanted to work for larger companies and gain valuable work experience. As a result, many small towns have fewer young people than before. Do you think it's better to live in a big city or a small town? Why? It depends on what you are looking for. On the one hand, small towns have a slower pace of life and a more peaceful environment because there are fewer people than in bigger cities. On the other hand, many young people have moved to larger cities in search of better career opportunities because they usually offer higher salaries. For example, I work in KL, but I go back to my hometown every weekend. That's why I think there's no perfect answer. It really depends on what stage of life you are in. Do you think governments should invest more money in smaller towns? I would say yes. I think the government should invest more in smaller towns. First and foremost, there are fewer job opportunities than in bigger cities. So many young people have moved to bigger cities in search of better career opportunities. In addition, public hospitals in smaller towns are often short-staffed, which means patients sometimes have to wait a long time to receive treatment. For example, many of my friends have told me that if you have medical insurance, it's often better to visit a private hospital because the waiting time is much shorter. As a result, I believe the government should invest more in smaller towns to improve people's quality of life and ensure that everyone has equal opportunities. no matter where they live. How do you think small towns will change in the next 20 years? Actually, it really depends on what policies the government implements. On the one hand, if the government is willing to invest more money in smaller towns, they will become more developed because more companies will open there, creating more career opportunities. As a result, the local economy will continue to grow. On the other hand, if the government doesn't provide enough support, many young people will continue to move to bigger cities in search of better career opportunities. For example, many of my friends moved to Kuala Lumpur because it offers higher salaries and better career development. As a result, I think everything depends on the government's priorities.